Ilana and I were having Sheva Brachos.
So you're in Winnipeg?
No, that was in Berkeley.
I was there.
You were there?
Not with you. I was up the street at the university.
That was so wonderful. And we had, so before the Chasana, my son-in-law, who married Tina, was sort of my best man. He was handling me, getting me ready for the chuppah and everything else. It was just a wonderful time. On the way, I said, we did everything but one thing we missed, a stag. So here we're sitting down at the Sheva Brachos, and I said we have to make up miluim for a stag. So this was so wonderful and funny, because what would a stag be in Jewish renewal about 75 years from now? Okay? So there's the Chabadnik. He takes a toke, goes like this. Oi, 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 oi. A zivul geyichud. And you have to begin with moichin. You have to see if there's a zivuk of understanding, so you talk with each other, chochma binadas. And when that is together, then you go to the next level, chesed gvur tiferet. And that's a hod yesod. You figure out, how you're going to run everything together and collaborate. And then when it comes to malchus, you do what you have to do. Okay. Along comes the kotzka. You go with a poopy kiss. Then comes the next guy. He is sort of two neshamas who were one neshama, and they were separated from afar, and there was the longing for them to come together. And through all the stories and the alilot, until they finally meet, they finally come together. The simcha is very great. And the whole point is just to keep in mind that you want to become again the one neshama. Okay. This was a Braslova. And it was so wonderful how everybody who was there added things. So then a panim chadoshes is always needed for Sheva Brachos. So I said, I want to make a niggin that I haven't made before. And this niggin is going to be in a major key. Not in a minor key, because it has to be freilich. So here's what happened. I'd like you to hear it because it's a lot of fun. Behind this, there is old country music.
Fiddle.
La 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 la
A sliding guitar.
You can waltz to
That's the point. Like the Tennessee Waltz.
That's oh, this is very cool.
it. Berkeley 75.
But it's still, it was wonderful. The mood was so great.
Nostalgic.
La 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 la.
Who was the Masada Kedushin? Shlomo?
Hinkle Park. A bit of Broadway. Now you can say it and smile, but it came so spontaneous, just this thing. I'm gonna have a Yal transcribe it.
Oh, good.
So you're going to call it Shema Brachas, the Nigun for Shema Brachas?
Pardon?
I mean, what are you going to call it?
Mistam Azay? Yeah. The Ponim Chadoshes of Sheva Brachas. Watch the ending. Chin the rest of them. Now watch this.
It's like 2 or 3 years after it opened. Had you been there? This is too much. I wish Nigel were here today.
I'll play it again.
It's so small. Small after. Oh, man. Oh, you're laughing
That's
too.
wonderful.
Huh?
You're laughing too on this.
Of course, it was.
Oh.
It was such fun doing
Oh,
it.
that's
goodness.
great.
I mean, it was, we
Move a little closer if you can.
we were living on Oxford and Fulton.
Uh huh.
Where I had just started my PhD, and that poster that's,
There, yeah.
I remember seeing it, but it's so funny. I was so turned off. I had just left working for the Bureau of Jewish Education in San Francisco. I was so turned off to Jewish community work. And Berkeley was so attractive to be a grad student, smoke dope, drink coffee. And I saw that poster, and I still remember saying, not interested. And Nadia and I talk about what would have happened if we had gone. We would have become, members of the Aquarian Minion, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And the history would have been totally different. Woo.
Well, so it is. Okay, Chavre, ready? I'll read. So we were Yotze with the Nigun already. So I look here at the Piasetzner, Derekh HaMelekh. What happens with the issue of Shkolim? All this has to do with the preparations, the Arba Parshiot are the preparations for Pesach. So what we try to do in those preparations for Pesach is to fix the roads and get them clean from tumat met, and so we have to have Pashas Poro, and we are dealing with Amalek, so we have to have Parshas Zocher. And when it comes to Rosh Chodesh Nisan, is a Chodesh Hazeh, is Parshas HaChodesh. So we have these 4 Parshiot, and they're a very exciting way of dealing with what we are dealing with in preparation. Now, the Machzis HaShekel is such a marvelous thing because you're dealing with something Ha'ashir lo yarbe v'hadal lo yamit. So you can't, there's a low plug. Rich and poor are all the same in the eyes of Hashem, and they all have to give that Machzis HaShekel. So that creates an issue. Why not a whole shekel already? You know? So, and you can imagine that when you see think about Machzis HaShekel, who is responsible, and so on and so forth. But if you find me a siddur, I'm sorry, Ruth Lynn, go in the other room, get me an art scroll, any art scroll siddur, because I want to find the Yotzer for Parsha Shkolim. Right behind there, the first, good. When you have, in Parsha Shkolim, many people don't appreciate what's in the Yotzrot, because hardly anybody says them these days. I don't know if they're going to say Yotzer tomorrow. First of all, they don't know the Nusach for Yotzrot, you know, because many, if they already know a Nusach, it's the Nusach for the High Holy Days. You know what I'm saying? It goes with Yesod Chachamim Unevonim Umelemedat Mevinim, etc. After Chapi. The same kind of a thing goes also in the Yotzrot. And Bruce Leben.
I can find every kind of to do except the article.
Well, if not the art scroll, I don't think the Chabad Siddur has it. That's the problem.
It was like Hanalei was at the DLTI
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago. She comes back, she calls up Nadia and says, I didn't know there was a special nusach for Mincha L'chol.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going, aye, the fact that we don't know those.
Yeah.
With a little help from my
Thank you. There's so few of the ability to do nusach in people, but even in real frum shuls,
Yeah.
because they haven't learned how to
Right,
really
you hear
haven't
them
learned how
do
to do.
Shabbos nusach.
So Arba Parshiot, let me just see, with Zachor, so we go before. Musaf Shkalim. I'm not going to go into the Yotzer, but the people who did masses and set them to music knew that if you're going to write a mass, like a Requiem Mass or something like this, Mass in B minor, they would have a Kyrie, an Introit, a Kyrie, a Gloria, a Sanctus, you know, those are the areas where you would do it. Well, we had such a thing also. There was a Nishmat. So Ibn Ezra did a Hakdama for the Nishmat, that wonderful poem, El Echad Barani Ve'amach Chai Ani Ki Lo Yerani Adam V'Chai Libi Uvsari Yeranenu El Chai. And then it ends, Benishmat Kol Chai, which was always the hook to the next thing. Then what they call Yotzrot is when you say Baruch Ata Hashem Yotzaro Baruch Hoshech Oseh Shalom V'Otakol, then it would go Or Olam Be'otzar Chaim Orot Me'ofel Amar Vayehi. That's the introduction. That God takes out the light of the world from the treasure of life, bringing light out from the darkness, shaping darkness into light. You know, that's so wonderful. Omar Veyehi, and he said it, and there it was, okay? And then they would begin by saying, for instance, Az, always Aleph base, because Elazar HaKalir, who was the chief Payatan, will say, it begins with Aleph. Az me'az zamota bechol po'al b'mispa b'mishkal kol lecha laha'al gadeta b'chein lemashui mimem sha'al dad mifkat yofi pamin ha'al ha'al hamiru kavot rea bebal v'ze lelo patzchu b'mal zunchu b'charon av lenegev v'gal chal ba'adam cheve v'atzri ta'al torach masam hu gadlo se'ed Yashram lahalitz talui rosh lase'ed. Hardly makes any sense, but I'll tell you what he's saying. And at the end it goes, the refrain. By this time you're at the kaf. Kaf from pats teit le'umim maseit. Kaf from der kapore. Pats he spoke. Teit to give. Le'umim to the people maseit. To lift their guilt. Lenatlam lenasem. To lift them up and to carry them. Bechitisa. 8. Bechitisa et Rosh B'nai Yisrael.
So in other words, there was a different piyut for each of the 4 special.
That's right. And and that got the poetic imagination going, because he was saying always to go back to the beginning. You know, Az, at that way back, Me'az, before even the before, you thought about what you were going to create, and then you measured it in number and in weight, everything to bring it up. You spoke thus to the one who was drawn out from the water, Moshe Rabbeinu, you know. So everything is done with these circumlocutions and so on, as long that he can put together a rhyme scheme that'll have the Aleph base, and that only the best people who know Midrash will really understand what's going on. And then they'll say, "Oi, did he do a beautiful job?" Because you see, there was always a question of how you put that mosaic of piyut together, because you had to have an allusion to the thing, you had to have a posuk, you had to have this. So, finally, when you get there's always sneaking in, yes, we celebrate, yes, we love you, God, yes, we remember, but listen. Tizkor lahalot nesu eracha midach yam. It is, you must lift us up. Temuchim, nezurim, behod tov edyam, tokef oz, idrucha al yam, tizkor la'am misparam kechol hayam. Remember us who are like the sand of the sea, and help us out. And so let's not forget we're in Golus, Rebbeinu Shalom, we need your help, okay? Now, so much, it would be real fun to learn all that. And I would have to prepare very hard, because I'm not sure I know all the allusions.
Can I ask you, is the nusach different for the entire service, or just for certain pieces?
Now, when you finish the thing, you come to Uvechein lechatali kedusha ki ata kedosh Yisrael u'Moshiach, and then goes Nekadesh et Shimcha b'olam, or Nagdish Rabbeinu Aritzach, and you go back to regular Shabbos. In Musaf, you go to Melech, Ozer, Moshiach, U'Magen. And I was singing in a choir as a kid in Vienna, in Polnischen Temple. And the Oberkantor Frenkel, he was very good. And we had a boys' choir, and I was in the choir, and sometimes I got to sing a solo. I was so proud. So he would begin, Eshkol ivi tavas kol nefesh, Betzilo chimadeti shevet, mitzono v'ofesh, bikashti velo metzati patzta betefesh, חמק עבר בלהדרי לי חופש. And then the choir would begin, גזלתי שקלי מיתי כופר נפש וטיבעתי במי צול בתיית ברפש. I gazalti shekolai. What it means? I held up people from my shkolim, right? I didn't give the right kind of tzedakah kofer nefesh, and so as a result, I drowned in the deep waters, in mud, and in excrement. Okay. So now, after this geschicht, the husband would say, Or ponech aleinu adon neso, v'shekel eso, v'bayis nachon v'niso, u'v'tzedek hegei erech kisi yiso, gonen nemo b'mogein, el rom v'niso, baruch ato Hashem, mogein Avraham. And that's how it went.
Well, it's close to High Holiday Nusach. I mean, it's not the...
I tell you what, I'm not even sure that I'm doing it right. I'm relying a little bit, I'm relying a little bit on my memory, but it isn't that, I know already now that I didn't sing the Gazalti Shekalai exactly how it was there. I felt it was off. But you see that when it gets to the place of the Nusach, the Musaf had some more. And in some places they only did the Musaf because the Chazan Rishon davened Musaf and the Chazan Sheni was the one who davened Shachris on such a day when the choir had a whole opus set up for Parsha Shkolim. And they had the thing for Parsha Zocher. And the funny thing about Parsha Zocher is that in the Musaf comes what to our ear is so strange. It deals with Haman. I don't see it here. So maybe this is... Maybe I can still find it. Listen to this period, okay? Atz kotzeitz, ben kotzeitz, ketzutzai lekatzeitz, vedibor mefotzeitz, rerutzutzai meratzeitz, letz bevoleloetz, pulatz venitzlotzeitz, ke'etz mechatzetzim lechatzetz, k'neitz al tzipor lenatzeitz.
Why the tzaddik?
Huh?
Why the tzaddik?
Because he was happy to show that listen, if I had to do, how many tzaddiks would you have in a Hebrew Scrabble? Just a few, right?
And he would manage to get every one of them in there.
That's right. And it's so wonderful. What it amounts to is, what he's alluding to, the wicked reaper, the Kotzeitz, Utz, he rushed. Kotzeitz, the cutter. Ben Kotzeitz, the son of Amalek, who was also a cutter. Retzutzai leratzeitz. He wanted to cut down and break down those people who had been circumcised. By this way, Retzutzai, okay? Let's bevolelotzeitz. When Amalek came to make fun of us, pulatz benitzlotzeitz, what has he said? I don't understand what Mifletzet, is a monster.
Right.
It's like like coming like this. And to make fun with. And Ke'otz, but this time Otz is with an ayin. Now what does that mean? He gave an eitzah. You understand? Because they twisted the grammar wherever they want, and it's wonderful. So, Kenetz al tzipor lenatzes, and like a hawk coming down on a bird. So, how does he give it over here? He doesn't even tell you the translation. He says this refers to Yehoshua battling Amalekites. Okay, it is so wonderful, and this is what's great with the Art Scroll Sitter, that they will always give you a spun version of the thing. If you look at the Shir HaShirim translation, you have that clear. The initials of this piyut spell the name of the composer, Elazar Berabi Kaliev. Okay? Now,
Yeah, by the way, remember, what was it, 3 years ago, or when we had, we did Shir HaShirim at your house, and everybody brought one
Different, yeah.
Eve read the Art Scroll one
So
with
good,
mockery,
yeah.
and then we had the more modern ones, Hannah Blocks and all.
Yeah, that one.
I mean, it was like there's
No
nothing
relationship.
erotic in the Art
They were
Scroll.
totally like two different things. With
Rabbi Zalman?
yeah,
One of the things I struggle with, I mean, when you were reading those, it reminded me, we talked quite a while back about yearning.
yeah,
But when you think about all the emotions that are evoked, both musically and
Yeah.
in the words here, I mean, even in Orthodox shuls today, you don't sense that, those different emotions being emoted during.
you couldn't do it because it's too fast. Imagine for a moment if he begins like or olam be'otzar chaim, and then begins at the beginning, all and so on and so forth that happened. Now, if you were to show him a movie of that, so it would go ta 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 and bereshit, and then it would take a few minutes until this, the music opens up and the skies get shown and so on and so forth, and then it goes to the next place that it wants to say Yetzias Mitzrayim, and Matan Torah, and always has to take us through. That's why I'd like to have something like a Disneyland, for taking people through. It sounds funny as I'm saying it, but what was the Eleusinian mysteries? They had in those caves in Greece, people would go in, they would get something to drink, a certain kind of lechaim, and sometimes like in the Pythia, smoke would come up, vapor would come up from below, and the people would go through a whole thing that would show what it means to live and what it means to die and where to experience death and experience again, like being born again, resurrection. Born again is not a maisa that they invented, the Christians, because there was already Ani Hayom Yeladaticha from before, but also in the Greek situation that people underwent such an ordeal, people who do the sun dance for 4 days, fasting completely, and so on, going through a whole then they would come out, and they would be told, you mustn't tell anyone about what you have seen, because it was to be a sod. And then what happened was that all your life it was sort of cooking inside of you, the memory, what this was like, and so on. So I would like to see that we would have our experiences that way, but if you rattle them off fast and you show so quick that you can't even absorb, because until you know what image he's talking about, you have to go through Midrash and see twisted grammar. Otz ein tzaddik, should have something to do with giving an eitzah. It takes a little while until you get there, and then finding out what he's talking about when he's talking about Haman and Amalek and ancestors, all of which isn't very clear. And yet, just a second, yet it is important that the reason why I brought this up is because I want to ask if Parsha Shkolim is really supposed to do something, because otherwise we wouldn't have it as part of our liturgy. So the question remains for us, what should it do for us today? That's what I wanted to reach to. You want to say?
No, I remember reading a couple of years ago that there were these major synagogues around the country on the high holidays because you have 1,000 people in a huge auditorium or whatever, and so they had these big screens up in which you could see the rabbi and the chazan, If you use that technology to flash imagery as you go through the liturgy, that's poetic, then you could evoke, I grew up in a shul that was mostly elderly Jews, many of whom were Holocaust survivors. They weren't very good on the joy part. But in the oi part, each tefillah evoked emotions in them, and I grew up with a negative image, so to speak, but at least there was that side of it.
The outlet to be able to cry together with other people was important. Let me say something about the. So you have that part of the shuls. I once did a mariv, and it still is in the can. That's to say, we never had the money for post-production stuff. One of these days, I'll play that mariv for you. We did it in Boston. Moshe Waldox, at that time, had access to a cable station. So we were going to get it ready, and then it would play on the cable from time to time, so that shut-ins could participate in the daven. One of the things that I wanted to happen with the, let's see, if this doesn't stop, I have to do something. No. Yes, I have to do something. Excuse me. All right, I'll leave it. I'm worried because it was a family line here, so that one doesn't have a machine. All right.
So, the Marid.
The Marid. So you'll see it's a very beautiful Marid. The people who are joining, it was 20, 30 years ago. The people who were joining in the davening, and Lev Friedman with the guitar, and I had the men sit on one side and the women sit on the other side, so that if somebody has sensitivities about that, they should not get freaked out by that. And we lit a candle at the beginning. It was really a wonderful thing. What I wanted was that Asher Bidvaru Marivarivim wanted to show a sunset, and a starry sky when comes a Saderet HaKochavim, So from time to time, I wanted something to be brought in, so that when you come to Emes Ve'emunah, for instance, Hapodeinu miyad melachim malkeinu agolim, Hey lanifralenu mitzarenu, Shalom gol cholev v'nafshenu, and you have some stuff taken from Cecil B. DeMille's 10 Commandments about the Egyptians drowning, something like that. So that because what I wanted to demonstrate is that if a person who has kavanah, even on a lesser level of kavanah, would have those kavanahs. Al achas kamo v'chamo, so if you can picture every part of that, imagine you come to Yore or Malkosh. You feel the rain and big drops coming down, almost ready to be like hail, shooting down. a malkosh, a very fine spray rain, you know. You have, yeah. Pen yifter avavchem v'satem v'abantem v'elehim acherim mishtachvisam lahem. And you're shown ugly by the Zohar or something like that. Ishamru lachem, and then you show Avram Avinu breaking it down, you know. So, do you understand? All this is the connotation that people would have in the davening. When those connotations aren't there, the davening is never very dry. So you're right when you're saying, what would you show, what would you bring in? You know, if they want the rabbi and the cantor to be seen, you know, it's one thing, they're the performers. But what would be if they would, you know, the Tezeh service, they haven't done it anymore, I'm sorry. I used to tell you about that service, where the musicians and the readers were in the back, and the people were all facing the front, the altar and the candles that was there, and it was a very beautiful thing. So if you can imagine the chazan and the rabbi being in the back of the people, the Aron Kodesh is open, you know, and there is this wonderful music, and over the Aron Kodesh is flashing heavenly scenes, Kimei Hashamayim, Al Haaretz, you know, how wonderful. Anyway, so now we're going to go to Parshat Shkolim and see what he has to say. This is the Piasetzner, and we had started this piece another time, so I'm going to skip after a while to where we left off. V'navin na'inyan ha'matbeya. Let's try and understand. What is the matbeya? V'davke chatzi ha'shekel. V'lama be'echad be'adar mashmiim al ha'shkalim. Why is it at the beginning of Adar, since it is Rosh Chodesh, you know, that you talk about shkalim? V'chein ha de'ita b'yalkut shama Moshe Rabbeinu v'shani meit en ani nizkar. What'll happen to me? People will forget me when I die. Omar lo Hashem kishem she'ata. And then he says v'chula, and I don't know what he is referring to. He didn't spell it out. So the next edition of this should have some people give the rest of the pasuk. V'zokev roshan v'noten lem parshat shkalim kach b'chol shana k'shikorim parshat shkalim ki'ila ata omed v'zokev et rosham. Because he says ki tisa, you know, et rosh b'nei Yisrael. So who is that? Moshe Rabbeinu. So he was saying, every year when the Shabbos comes, you are going to be there to lift them up. So they won't forget you, because kitisa is going to be something that you will do. Now he has gone and talked about, the whole point goes to ten da'atecha, and he's trying to tell what da'at is. So he had begun by saying that something isn't real until we feel something about it. You know, a concept is a concept is a concept is a concept. But when does it hit you as for real? When when you feel something about it, a siman. Now, where does this feeling for real come from? It comes not from chesed v'ur tiferet. At the beginning, it comes from keter. You know, it has that reality that comes from God's will. It is for real. But then, Keter doesn't show itself in Chochmah, because Chochmah me'ayin timatzeh. And it isn't there in Bina, because Bina breaks everything into little details, you know. So where does it come back in? It comes into Da'at. Got that up to now? So, וזה החילוק בין דעת לחוכמה ובינה. הבינה היא כבר התלבשות בצורות ולא עצם הנפש בלבד. By the time it gets to Bina, you're already investing your mind into concept, into known things that you have from before. In other words, Bina deals with duration and with the past of that. והחוכמה אף שהיא כוח העצם, אבל רק כוח בלא התגלות, היא עדיין ללא מבחינת, והחוכמה מעין תימוצא היא. So, in the Chochmah itself, it is only a little flash, as it were. It has the essence in it, because it's koach ma, is the potential for whatness, which means the essence of the thing. And so that's what chokhmah is capable of. However, since it doesn't manifest itself, it needs to have bina to help it manifest. So you can't get into feeling from that either. I'd like to expand that a little bit, unpack it. There is a Hebrew word hamtsa'ah, and there is the Yiddish word Einfall, from the German, Einfall. In other words, it occurred to me. From where did it occur? It occurred. Before it wasn't there, now it is there, so it occurred. You get the occurrence,
Outside, like you found it.
That's right.
It was there all along, but you had to find it.
You had to find it. No, it wasn't even there all along.
Hamtsa'ah.
Hamtsa'ah is...
Isn't it? I mean, it doesn't have the same...
יש מאין, המצאה זה יש מאין.
That's the point of yesh ma'ayin, It wasn't there before.
Right.
And now suddenly it is there. And metzia is what was there before, and I found it, But a hamtsa'ah is the making of that metzia. And it comes with the word metziut. And mitziut is more the issue of existence, It comes into existence. Now let's say I have a thought, and very often I can even induce that thought, but I cannot predict when it'll occur to me. Let me spell that out. Imagine I ask myself a conundrum, a deep kasha, which is like a koan. And I can't figure it out because what it does is my usual mindset says either or, make up your mind. It can't be both, Now, so very often we cut off one side and we say this is it and the other side is not it. But if you have patience and you're willing to, let me use that word, to be crucified by what pulls at you from both sides. In other words, the paradox crucifies you and you stay in the tension of that. You are not necessarily going to get the answer right away, but you carry the tension in you, and there's an incubation that's taking place. And all of a sudden, eureka, it comes out, okay? So eureka is that kind of nimtza. It is suddenly, now when that happens, how many times did you have such things, and 5 minutes later you could remember was, for a moment, I thought I could see forever, I understood everything that there was. What was it?
Right.
Right? So, all that is left is a reshima of that feeling that I was there, and that goes like Atzilut, I don't know when I am in Atzilut, because when I'm in Atzilut, I don't exist. When that moment of the Hamtsa'ah comes in, when that Eureka comes in, I have no sense of self at that point. All I have is a sense of that totality of the Einfall, what I'm getting. A little bit later, when I come back to myself, if I don't have a way of labeling it up, I get it right away. How many times you wake up and you want to remember a dream and you can't remember the dream because it didn't leave your handle. And what is a handle? Something to grab it with. Begriffsmittel, concept, concapto, to grab it with, So Bina gives us these concepts, the handles for it. What you
No,
want to
I
say?
was thinking about nigunim, which don't have words. So how do you remember them?
By an association. For instance, I know there's a nigun de Benani, I know there is Tova nigun, the Baal Shem's nigun, there's a Vulka nigun. And all the Shloime nigunim, the same kind of a way. If I want to remember that nigun, I go to mim koimach, you know. I go to Boi B'Sholem Ateret Balo. So I have a handle on it, okay? It's interesting. You ask Nadia the same question. It's going to be a nice conversation.
Well, I asked Reb Strasfeld a number of years ago, because he, is also a Bala Nigun, and he says, I don't know how I remember them.
Uh-huh.
All right? So I figured you're the only one I know who's a Bala Nigun. And
well, I tell you, it has to do with introspection a little bit.
I mean, I watch Nadia.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's going on. She's
so ask her. It's going to be good for her, and it's going to be good also for Reb Amitai.
How do you remember a
Meiser, right?
Meiser.
All right.
Reb Zalman, this is all supposed to have relationship to a feeling that you get when you are reading a particular say shkalim.
Yeah.
That is, it's supposed to evoke that, and the question is, what does that come from?
Well, not only there's not so much what comes from, because there is one of the questions is, why is davening called hitpa'el, hitpalel, hitpa'el? Because I'm making it happen to myself, you know.
Where do I get it from? I get it from this.
Nicht ausgebetet, but eingebetet. You know, I'm praying it almost into myself. So I may not be there, but when the right melody comes, I induce it into myself. You know, so a lot of Jewish stuff is Asher Anochi Noten Lachem Hayom. You know, Al Levavchem, so that we have to take that and put it into our feeling system. But it comes from the outside. That was an earlier paradigm, by the way, that comes from the outside. But also there is an element of where it comes from the inside. And now we are not talking about that it comes from the inside only, because the people who were playing psychology were saying it comes from the inside only. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You're making it up. Freud would say it from your unconscious, it's this and that and so on. What we are saying is, there's an outside min hashamayim, and there's an inside, that comes, that we make ourselves a matrix to be ready to be mekabel min hashamayim. Yes.
Right. It's amazing because I'm teaching modern Jewish thought to Phyllis Berman,
Mm-hmm.
and so she wrote me an email asking me the difference between the externality and internality of the Kant-Mendelssohn all right?
Debate, yeah.
Right, and Kant says that it's all inside, the conscience. And his friend Mendelssohn says, yes, but there's an element that comes from the outside, which he calls the revealed law.
Right.
So it's Mendelssohn who says, who is much more of a psychologist, I think, than Kant, who says there's an element that derives from he didn't know what it was, but it is derivative of the internal, and there's an external. Yeah.
So
the kavanah comes from being, one has to have the kavanah to be ready to receive min hashamayim.
Right. There is a zivuk of those two together. When it's only coming min hashamayim, then it's the batkol that isn't heard.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. When we are preparing for it, sometimes we have to tarry and wait, and nothing is coming. But when there are those yoma de pagra, when the particular inyane de yoma is happening, and you can tune into the inyane de yoma, because that's the power of the calendar. It puts us into ilo tempora time. Once again, this time comes when we do shkalim. And shkalim is a preparation for Pesach. And we have to fix the derech, the drachim, be metaken the drachim. And you can get to see there's an element so that we can be all regel when Pesach comes. And each time, when you understand it on a higher level, you get to see what this is supposed to do. So he comes back and says, from Neither from Chochmah nor from Bina can you get the midas going, a real feeling. Ma she'en ken hadat hitgalut etzem v'haketer hi. The very existence, the very essence of things, in Da'at breaks through Keser. And he says, Lo haketer asher lifnei kol, gam lifnei chochma ubina. It's not the keter that precedes everything in existence. He says, Rak b'chinas haketer she'achar ha'machshava. This is such an important thing, such a deep thing, so let's hang in there for a little bit. Ruthchen, you're doing me good things, because a lot of the stuff that when you're here, I can say it in German, and that gives me hanoah, because it's a good expression. When you say, you hear something in the radio, you see something in the paper, you encounter something, when is it that you get involved? And in German you would say, es geht mich nicht an, es geht mir nicht an. It doesn't come on to me, it doesn't touch me. So when he says, you have an idea, it's in Chochmah, it's in Bina, and now it's in Da'at, and in Da'at geht es mir an.
It is what?
Es geht mir an. It really is nogea bi, It enters into me. So when Professor Heschel was talking about the thing that he calls situational thinking, it's that moment, where Da'at
Where you
says
sit in
it touches me.
Yeah.
So the mashal that I give in Gate to the Heart is, there's a doctor friend, and he's looking at some slides with you, and he explains to you, with this stain is this, with this stain is that, and then finally he says, but that's the biopsy that I took of you last time, and all of a sudden, what happens? The feeling comes in. That's a keter. It touches his existence at this point. In other words, he gets involved. The fancy way of saying is that this is participatory epistemology. It's not mere understanding, it's understanding wie es geht mir an, I'm involved in it. התגלות האחדות ופנימיות הנפש אשר בהתלבשות היא, לא אשר בהתלבשות הבינה לבד, רק בכלל הארת העצם. והבחינה שדרה אשר נתלבש נתגלה בדעת, בהערה, וגם הפנימיות בעצם של המידות נתגלה. So what happens is that there are the emotional connections are invoked. Let's talk computers for a minute, okay? What is it that a virus detector does?
It detects anomalies.
Right? And you also, that's why you have to upload it all the time, because they tell you when such and such a pattern arises, quarantine it right away. Do you see what I'm saying? Yes, it hops right away. Now
So
this,
that it shouldn't grab onto the emotional involvement,
right,
so to speak.
in that case. In this case, on the other hand, we have that some ideas are infertile. They don't have the grabber. They don't have a driver connected with them. And some ideas are fertile. And the fertility of an idea comes by that self-involvement that comes to it, It is no geya. It really touches. Hadad me'orer gam et hamidot mibnei she'atzman hi. אדרבה, זאת היא מידתה של הדעת לעשות אחדות גם מן הפירוט והמידות. What is it that happens in a paradox? We are torn apart of that. Which way do we go? Make up your mind. But when it gets into da'at, the moment of aha happens when there's a conjunctio oppositorum. Get that? When the opposites become united.
But the opposites usually become united in a synthesis that's neither this nor that.
That's right. That's what he's saying. That's why before you don't really know. Ata yodati. Every time that David HaMelekh says, Ata yodati, now I know ki Hashem hu Elokim, what does it mean? And didn't you know before? But as I know it now, I didn't know it before. There's always something, there's a chidush in that, a greater reality.
It's what Piaget was talking about when he described synergy, is that you have two parts. I mean, it's not enough to say that synergy is the sum of the two parts.
Right.
Because it is, in fact, more.
The sum is greater, right?
It's greater than, because
than
it has
parts.
an essence that is different than the two parts added together.
Now, here what the Piasetzner put with this, that's correct. And what he says is, look, what does that do? It makes a unification. But you know what? It's not the unification that happens before the Tzimtzum. Because before the Tzimtzum, there was a unification and there were no parts. Rak gam mehem lasat achdut v'yediah achad. It's even when it's all into diversity and separation and so on and so forth, and that makes the big aha, that for that moment it feels, I've got it together. You know what I'm saying? And I'm in touch with it. And the way in which, if you allow yourself, without the false modesty of the art scroll, to talk and to feel, you would say, what happens is, just as Adam yadad chava ishto, and you can imagine that there is, at that moment, an orgasm happening. And in that orgasm, myself is not as important as the self of the other, and there's a merging of the two. So you have a sense that this is a kind of achdus. But it's not an achdus as it was before there was male and female. It's an achdus afterwards. So he says, it's lo achdus shekodem hatzimtzum bilvad. That's easy. You can easily go into the transcendent for achdus. But can you make achdus here? So that's how I translate. Ose shalom b'mromav. God, it's easy to make peace above. Not so difficult. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al Yisrael. That's much more difficult, and to bring to that place. Okay. Lachen, את המחשבה בכוונה מאיזה דבר יכולים להבין גם קודם העשייה. מה שאין כן ידיעת וראיית הדעת הוא רק אך עם התעוררות המידות. The machshava, the thought alone, what's machshava? Give me a less abstract meaning for mechashev. V'cheshev apudato, we were just reading in this, it's a weave.
It's a design.
Huh?
A design.
A design, a weave, a weaving, From the weaving comes the design to which you get to the thought, So they had the sense of, if you take a look and see how an idea is woven, most of the time we get the idea and we see it whole. But imagine this moment, I tell you a mashal. Once upon a time, there was a king and he had a son, and I tell a ganze Meise about that. And by the time I'm finished by saying, and the poor son become estranged from his father, and the father sent him into Golas. And after a while he felt, I want to come back to the palace, what am I going to do? They don't let him in because nobody believes he's the king's son, and he has dirty garments and so on and so forth. He doesn't have the kuth anymore that you have to go into the king. And they don't let him, and he doesn't know what to do. So suddenly he remembers and says, I remember when I was a child, Papa would stand and sing me a lullaby that nobody else sang. in the world. That was my special lullaby. And he stands under the king's window and he says, Shema Yisrael. You know? Do you see what happened? There's the story, and there is, like, the warp is a story. And now when I say the woof, you know, of that, bringing the Shema Yisrael, so then the mashal and the nimshal come together at that moment, and it's a weave. And at that point, the wonderful joy that we feel also gets us close to a tear sometimes in our heart. Oi, 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 emes, oi, sweet, you know. All right. ועיקר התגלות למראה אחת ממשי ביסוד המלכות אחר התגלות המידות בפועל, לא בהתהורת בלבד. It isn't enough for a midah, for an attitude, to be something that you have aroused in you if it hasn't been channeled yet into something to do with it. למשל, איש ישראל מקיים את יום הכיפורים בכל דבר שבשביט המלאכה עינויים בכוונה פשוטה מפני שכך כוזר בתורה וכוונה זו יודעהו קודם יום הכיפור ויכול ללמוד בספרים קדושים וידע עוד כוונות וטעמים יום כיפור. אבל כשעוברים עליו ימי אלול בתשובה וטהרה ואחר כך ראש השונה בשופר כדבעי וכן 10 ימי תשובה, אז כשבא ליום הכיפורים מצטרפים אליו ימים אלה עם כל המעשים הפרטים של הימים ההם לידיעה וראייה אחת, והוא רואה את יום הכיפורים למרום שיאה של קדושה. למרום שיאה של קדושה. You got the idea? As he says, before Elul comes, the guy already knows what Yom Kippur is. And I call that the part, the smaller part of the Afikoman. You break the Afikoman and you eat it as matzah, as lechem oni at the beginning. And then the bigger part you leave for after the meal to be the Afikoman, the last thing that you eat. So I give the mashal, a woman is pregnant and she is going through the training for birthing, and she understands it all very clear, when to breathe, when to push, when this, when that. But then, after the baby is born, so if you ask her before, do you understand? She says yes. But if you ask her afterwards, do you understand? Oh, she understands, right? She's had the experience. And that's when the understanding becomes real. And so he says, the same kind of a thing is then all the preparations that go into Yom Kippur make the Yom Kippur happen in a richness, because there is a contribution that is being made from everyday Elul, the shofar, and from all the hachanot, okay?
And it's also that you said that the time itself somehow is like an entrainment, sort of, that
Yeah,
just
that
even if
he
if
doesn't
we
talk
didn't
about
do
this
all of
now.
that, but even if we didn't do all of that, there would be still some quality about this
Yeah.
time of year
Yeah.
that would create an atmosphere that would make us able to experience something.
You know what fail-safe units are? When this doesn't work, there's still something else that'll work. So the nusach that keeps coming in, and you just give yourself to listen to that a little bit, and all the zedas and bubbas come back, and everything else comes back. And davar bi'ito matov, if it happens to be at the right time, then the cumulative effect of that, that's why I call the God field at times, you know, that's already charged with that from before. Okay. I'll skip. He finally wants to get back. He's gone a great and wonderful excursus, you know, to talk about consciousness. That's why I feel it is this sefer hasn't yet been done. All the other form of the Piasetzner have been done. Eish Kodesh has been done, and Conscious Community has been done, and Tzav V'Zirus has been done, and Chovat HaTalmidim has been done, but Derekh HaMelekh hasn't been done. And it's not a single thing, because every Shabbos he gives another teaching, but as
It
he...
follows the Torah portions?
Hmm?
It is for the Torah portions?
Yeah, that's in the Derekh HaMelekh, Torah portions, but this time, since we're dealing with the portion of Shkalim, I've gone to that. It doesn't quite deal with Pikudei, you know. והנה כל דבר סופרים אותו כפי עצמותו. Each thing, when you count it according to its essence. That's why you can't count apples and oranges together, unless you decide that the essence is fruit. You know, you make a cloud, then in that cloud you can take that in. But if you add up apples, you can't count the other one. So he says everything is counted according to its essence. So you say asara batim nimnim la'asara velo la'achad mipnei she'agush shelahem nifrad kol echad mechavero b'shlosh rechakim shel orech beroche v'gova. So he's trying to find the rabbinic language to be able to talk about dimensions. He says everything that you find finds itself b'shlosha rechakim, in three distances, which is like saying dimensions, right? Merchak, orech, rochev, and gova. Ma she'en ken hamatbea, hatzura hi atzmuta. When it comes to a matbea, its shape is what gives it its being. Ubeis chatzaya shekel, be'im lo haya ba'achotem aleim lechatman bechatzayim, ki az hayu nimnim l'shtei chatichot, rak b'shvil hachotem nimnu shtein la'achad. What he's making here is, to him, the machzis ha-shekel was really a shekel split into two. You know, he doesn't see a half shekel coin, because that would be a whole coin, and that would make, so then you would have two of them would make two half shekel coins.
Right.
But if you take each half and put them together, it makes 1 shekel again. Okay, you get the idea that he's saying here. כי אז היו נמנים לשתי חתיכות, ורק בשביל החותם נמנו שתיהן לאחת, because you could see from the engraving it, from the shape that it has, that they belong together. The chotam makes them into one. Shekel echad, that makes it 1 shekel. Umahu achotem. Now we know already that if you take a what's the word? A diffuse, a form that you stamp the
Like
gold
seal.
into, you know, one is going to be what do you call it? Concave. The other one's going to be concave and convex, right? Yeah. So, but what on the level of our conversation with Da'at and consciousness, what do we call here the Chotem? He says, Harachat deot b'nei adam she'erichu zot le'erech matbea chashuva. By itself, it isn't a thing. The shape isn't such a thing. So you have a shape of a buffalo on a nickel, you know. So what, you know? But because when people have said, if you see that shape of a buffalo is worth 5 cents, okay, so it is an investment. The haracha she'erichu zot le'erech matbea chashuva. People consider this to be, it is their assuming, their estimation. וכן הוא בשביל ישראל. אמנם בערך גופם נמנו כל אחד. If you go to count them according from their bodies, then everybody is a unit in himself. אבל באמת כל אחד מספרם הוא לפי קדושתם והדעת אלוקים שבהם. What you really, if you're counting the outside, there's so many bodies. But if you want to count what the quality, what's on the inside, how much do they know, how much are they aware, שהדעת מאחד גם הנפרדים לאחד. Because that then is able to take, how would I say, I have 10 houses, but I have one neighborhood. Okay? I'm making a klal that brings them together. It has a tzad ha-mishutaf, right? And so that's what it is when we make an eruv and so on and so forth. We want to create a shutafut of the people so that we could be seen as one. Now, before I go on, some of you may remember, Victor, that once we davened at Ohala in a way that people stood like in the place of the Sfirot, and during that Shemon Esrei, the people who were in Chochmah said Atachonin, the people who were in Bina said Hashivenu, and the rest of us hummed that vowel sound that came. Because Patach, is Chochmah, well, this was going on. And then we did A for Bina and so on and so forth. Now, the whole thing that has to do with Klal Yisrael and with organismic thinking goes that we don't want the whole body to be skeleton. Then it couldn't move. We don't want the whole body to be veins. Everything works together in this kind of thing, so to make a whole picture. So when you go and see what has happened in the days of the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, when Reb Zusha and Reb Shneir Zalman, who loved each other very much, and Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, imagine those three together. You couldn't imagine greater differences of personalities, right? And they loved each other very much. And you can imagine that if they needed to do something, to do some kind of a tikkun, that if these three got together, they would be able to make the tikkun, because each one brought their particular situation to it. So if all the orchestra were to play tubas, it wouldn't be an orchestra. So you have to have a variety of instruments. And if I look at the Rebbes that were in their Hasidim, you had at the beginning real individual differences. This one was like this one was like that. Now I look around and I see that very seldom do I find someone who's a Yotze, in a klal, because they wear the same outfit, they speak the same thing. You ask them a question, they said the Rebbe said, and they don't talk about what they're thinking themselves. I had such joy this week, such deep nachas. Dov Ber Pinson came through, and he is a Chabadnik who had written about meditation and about nigunim and so on and so forth. So he spoke at the Millennium. Were you there? Mm-hmm. And it was such a pleasure to see this young man, and you knew not only was he mouthing things, he had a sense there was real cognitive mass behind what he was saying. And he started out talking about meditation, and started to explain some things about Olamot and Dvar Hashem and stuff like that, and that he put out. And he put it out very beautifully. The next afternoon, he came to see me. And we had a wonderful, wonderful shmuz. And I tell you, I was so excited by him because I saw myself 40 years ago in him. That's exactly with the same cheshik I would be teaching these kinds of things and making him accessible to people rather than to keep that. So then we had a shmuz, and it was wonderful, and he was an individual. So not often do you find people who are individuals because they're all made of the same thing. But then he says over here, the whole point of that is me'achet et hanifradim la'achad. That I know that I need you with your quality, and I need you with your quality, and nobody should be the same because it is in a concert.
So the half shekel is like everybody has something.
That's what he's trying to say, yeah?
I have to go, sorry, I was too
Okay, go l'chaim l'shalom. Yes, it is time now. All right,
You know,
just let me see. Aha, so all right, so he finishes that thing by, I just don't want to leave it hanging there. He finishes the thing and says, when God promised Moshe Rabbeinu that despite the fact you think that you're afraid that they're going to forget you, so I want to tell you that they won't forget you because every year when Parsha Shkolim comes, it is you who's going to lift them up. Okay? Now let's say for a moment we talk to every denomination, including the what do they call them? The agnostics, right? And we were to ask all of them, we make a vayakel hakel ta'am, and you gather them together, and you would say, do you feel that you have a shaykhus to Moshe Rabbeinu? And I think that everybody would say yes. Okay. So that's the point he is making, that the Parsha Shkolim is that we all say it is who raises us up, who combines us together, who puts us into Achdus as Moshe Rabbeinu. Good Shabbos, good Yontif, good Chodesh, and all these wonderful things. Welcome to you.
This the Chatzi Shekel is like partnership, relationship. It's the same concept.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, so that's why the Shama Achas, you know?
Whoa, what a teaching.
I like to play with the word da'at.
Yeah.
If you take the